Hello, everyone. As Kenny said, I'm Kathy Fahy, and I have done quite a few things with Rotary. Let's just put it that way. Been very involved, especially lately as I share my screen here. I'll just start talking. Very involved in training all the district governors elect in San Diego, or well, it used to be San Diego. It'll be Orlando, I guess, this year. But one of the things that I've learned is that there are so many resources for public image that are out there that Rotary has put together for us that don't always make it to your level, the club level. And these things are here for you to use. And so I'm here to show you some of these things today. And hopefully I don't totally overwhelm you. And I encourage you to dive in and check some of these things out. Even if you take away one or two nuggets today, that's really all I'm asking, is that you just start to look at how public image can really help your club. And so I always like to start a little bit with what I call the synergy wheel. We all know that foundation, public image, and membership are all key to our clubs, but how do they work together? And I really believe that it takes all three of these things to make Rotary go. And so when you're doing good in the world through the foundation funded programs, so whether you're doing district or international grants, you're doing good with Rotary. But we need to tell that story. We need to tell that story because then that enhances the public image of Rotary, which in turn attracts new members so we can do more good. And then of course, more members means you get more funding, which means we can use different programs, and the wheel just keeps spinning. So we really need all of these things in tandem to be a solid and vibrant club. And that's really what we all want. I've always said that the joy of Rotary is that, yes, we have this overarching organization. We're part of this international organization, but really when it comes to the club level, we can kind of do what we want. We're autonomous. We can make it what works for our members. And so if we just use some of these basic tools to keep the Rotary brand and everything alive, but yet make it our own and make it the experience that your members are looking for, we can just grow and have lots of vibrant clubs around the world. So I like to talk a little bit about the logo and about our Rotary brand. And sometimes I call this a little bit of brand therapy because we call it the new logo, but guess what? It's been around for 8 years already. So it's not really new anymore. So sometimes we need to go through a little therapy session and talk about branding and how brands evolve. Why did we do this? Why did Rotary change the logo, et cetera, et cetera? So I'm going to talk a little bit about branding for just a moment. I am a marketer by trade. That's my primary job, is that I consult with companies all over the place. Now, I haven't consulted with these companies I'm showing you. I'm just showing you some examples of how logos and brands have changed over the years. Here's an example of the Ford Motor Company. You can notice how they started out and how they've evolved, but really for the past almost 100 years, they've been very similar in look. Now they've updated, but it's always kind of been that oval. In 1957, they decided to squish it a little bit, not make it so ovally, but it's always been that oval. And we recognize that when we see that that's the Ford brand. Shell is another example. When we see this, we all know, what are we going to get? We're going to get gas and snacks because they also have a convenience store. So over the years, they had the shell, they added the words, they decided you couldn't see the words, so they made them red, they added to put a box around it, they took a box away, they took the words away, they put the words underneath the shell, and now today we're just the shell. But you know that when you see this, you know that you're seeing shell. Pepsi, a fantastic example of branding case study. When you first look at the initial years of Pepsi logo, what does it look like? It looks like the Coca-Cola logo. Guess what? That was done on purpose. They had this thought that Coca-Cola is selling so many products. What if someone comes in and just accidentally buys ours? That was actually there to try us. That was their strategy in the beginning for branding. And then around 1950, they realized that we're good enough now, we can have our own look and feel. And so over the years, you've seen how Pepsi has evolved. Now, I mentioned a little bit ago, for those of you who are listening in, about my friend Liz, who lives in Detroit. Her and I frequently have done this presentation together, and she says that she's contractually obligated to put the Apple logo in here too. But the original Apple logo shows that Sir Isaac Newton is under the tree there with the apple above him. Very few people know that that's the original Apple logo. But you also notice how that has evolved over the years. But it's also kept in your mind, you know, when you see that, who that is. So what have we done with Rotary? In 1905, we had the wheel, a basic wagon wheel, because guess what? At that time, that was our mode of transportation. In 1906, we decided to add a little movement to it, a little dust on the bottom to make it look like we were active. See that people of action thing? It started way back then. In 1910, we became the National Association of Rotary Clubs. So therefore, added some of that wording in. But then guess what? In 1912, this club in Canada decided to join us. So we became international. And so we updated our logo for that purpose. And then in 1924, guess what? Our first engineer joined Rotary. You know why? Because there's that little keyway in the hole in the middle. That's what helps make your wheel turn. Otherwise, your wheel is just going to spin and not go anywhere. So we updated our logo again in 1924. And then here we are today. If you haven't noticed, we brought our first name out. We put Rotary out and pulled our name and put it next to the logo out front. Why did we do that? Because we wanted to not only differentiate ourselves from other service organizations that have circular logos that sometimes you can and can't read as you're driving into a community with a sign. We wanted to make sure people knew that we were real people as well. We are Rotary. We pulled our first name out and put it into the logo. Over the years, people have changed our logo on their own. Guess what? Only 2 of these in the history of Rotary have ever been correct. So please don't Google a Rotary logo and pick one off of the internet to use, because I can tell you that 90% of them are wrong. Here's our logo. Very basic. It's 2-color. There's also other options, and I'll show you some of those in a moment. There's a voice and visual guide, and this is in the brand center. We're going to talk about the brand center more in a moment. If you haven't accessed the brand center in My Rotary, please do so. I know it's a little cumbersome to get into. I'll show you a few tips and tricks as to how to use it. But please, there are so many resources there at your fingertips, things that are already developed, things you can customize and use. So if you go to My Rotary on the Rotary website, create your account if you haven't already. It's very simple, just a password and a login. And just so you know, even you don't have to be a member of Rotary to access the brand center. So let's say you have a vendor of a newspaper, or you're doing an ad, or let's say you're doing shirts. I'll talk about shirts in a moment when we get to the simplified logo. But you can have your vendor go and download this brand standards guide so that they see exactly what is and what isn't acceptable. There is a simplified version of the Rotary logo too, and that is this version right here. This version was made primarily for digital applications. So when you have small little logos like down in the corner of my screen here, places where you're not going to be able to read the words Rotary International in the wheel. This is a great option. This is also a wonderful option for clothing, because you know darn well that if you embroider something, to see Rotary International in that little wheel on your clothing, don't take the other logo and just alter it. Use this simplified logo, and I'll show you how you can access that as well. When I mention clothing, we always talk about Rotary licensed vendors. That is true in the case of the Rotary logo that you see on your screen right now. Anything with just the Rotary logo as it's shown on the screen, either this one or with the words in it, needs to be a licensed vendor through Rotary International. But if you're doing something with your club or your district logo, which we'll talk about that in a moment, the Rotary logo here with your club name under it, that's okay to use a local vendor. You can use local vendors for shirts and to print different things as long as you use your customized Rotary Club logo. You don't have to use a licensed vendor then. It's only if you're using this Rotary logo in front of you as it stands right now without what I call signing it. You sign it by putting your name under it, and I'll show you that in a moment. So just a little thing to know. So why do we do this? Why is there a brand standards guide? Colleges and universities have been doing this for years because they want to make sure that when you see them, you know who they are. Here's the University of Michigan, for example. It tells you the colors to use, how it can be used, complementary colors, and then things not to do. I mean, heaven forbid that M look too close to a Northwestern N or a Wisconsin W with the wrong colors, you know, so there's reasons for this. Northwestern, for example, in Chicago, their color palette is very simple. You can use any color as long as it's purple. That's what their brand standards guide. And then they show you exactly how you can and can't use the logo as well. Penn State is another example. I love how they say many organizations allow a multitude of colors to be used. We are dark blue, and you can use some light blue too. Rotary has a color palette as well in the voice and visual guide. Now, if you're a marketing person and someone says, hey, put a brochure together for us, there are literally thousands of colors that you can choose from. This is a marketing person, graphic designer's dream because you've laid it out. This is the color palette that we prefer for Rotary. Obviously, royal blue and gold are our primary colors, but here's some other colors that we can use as well. And it makes it a lot simpler for people putting together your materials. It also talks about the fonts that we can use. Frutiger is actually a font that you need to pay for. That is the font that is used in the Rotary logo. You know, when you get big enough, you kind of got to pay for your fonts once in a while. But if you don't want to pay for the font, Sentinel and Arial Narrow in Georgia are alternate typefaces that are similar enough, but they're also free and come with a lot of your software that you use on a regular basis. The voice and visual guide shows you things you can and can't do, how you should brand. There's just a lot of things in here if you haven't seen this resource. Obviously, it shows you the ways you can and can't use the logo or the wheel. And I'm sorry, but heaven forbid, don't change the wheel. Don't put a crab or a lobster in it or have a fish jumping out of it. That's not our brand. You don't see McDonald's having a fillet of fish, a fish jumping out of their logo during Lent. So why would we have something jumping out of our logo? And if you think this doesn't happen, we have a whole file of examples. There are so many clubs that do this. It's scary, actually. So don't add a drop shadow to it. You know, a lot of people like to think that they're being creative and they add stuff to it. And the first thing that happened after we updated the logo was someone took the old wheel and put the new wheel, put it with the new words. No, we're just a two-color logo. And that wheel is transparent. I show you this here so that you can see that you should always be able to see the background through the wheel, whatever your background is. So that wheel is transparent. So now I'm going to kind of go into, we've talked about the logo, and I'll show you how you can customize yours if you haven't done that or you haven't seen that. But I want to kind of give you 5 basic public image resources that you really need to know about. These are things that you can access, you can give to your board members to access, and these are really truly tools for you to use. So the first one is that updated voice and visual guide that I just mentioned. Where can you find that? That is on rotary.org/brand center. And if you haven't been to the brand center, this is a fantastic place for resources. You'll see there towards the bottom of the screen that you can select the guidelines, which is that voice and visual guide. When you get to the page, here's what the page looks like. Just scroll to the bottom, and there it is down there on the voice and visual guide. You can select that. And then the updated version, it was just updated in March. So if you did happen to have one of these before, I would highly recommend that you download another one. It's a PDF format. You can share it, and it shows those different messaging options, things to do with your logo. A couple of the new updates that are in this are how to treat the Youth Exchange logo, Rotary Youth Exchange, as well as RILA. This is called a lockup format. And what I mean by lockup format is that you have your Rotary logo, and it could be district number here, or you can do your club underneath it, and I'll show you that in a moment. It has the line, or what's called a pipe is the technical term. And then next to it, it has a program. So this is where you can do a verbiage for Rotary Youth Exchange, or I'll show you how you can actually make ones of these yourself. Let's say your club has an anniversary coming up, and you want to put a logo next to it for your 100th anniversary. Or let's say you have a signature event. You could type the words in for that signature event right here, and you could have a special logo just for that. Very simple. Once again, here's RILA as well. We're really trying to build our brand around Rotary and keep that front and center. This is to keep consistency and to show that, you know, we are all kind of one regardless. There's some additional Rotary logo templates now too. So if you haven't done, updated your club logo, I highly recommend that you do so. A little birdie has told me that Rotary International is starting to actually audit and look and see which clubs have updated on their websites and their Facebook pages. It may in the future hinder how quickly you get grant money. Just want you to know that. That's a little rumbling. So kind of a little inside thing. So you might want to update your logos if you haven't. So you simply click on this logo tab in the Brand Center. And then when you get there, you click on this template, this create your own template. When you click on that, you click create, and guess what? You have a plethora of options. Hopefully this looks familiar to you. If it doesn't, please go in. You can select, obviously, if you want to do your club logo in a different language, you can. It might be kind of fun if you're hosting an exchange student from another country to do that on a welcome material. And then you select the club right here with Rotary, and I'll show you in a moment some other ones that you can select. You know, there's the normal or the simplified logo version, and then colors. And so I'll show you, and then placement. You can place above and below and everything. So it really gives you options for how you can customize your own logo. But here's a few things that have recently been added. You can now do customized Rotaract logos. So if there's a Rotaract club affiliated with your club, you can do a customized logo now, and also Interact. So Interact clubs can do their own customized logo for locally as well. So you can select those when you select the club type. There's also that simplified version that I talked about. And that simplified version is there for all of those options too. And this works well, once again, in those places where there's small spaces or on clothing. It's often referred to as the digital wheel as well, in case you ever hear it used that way. There are color options. So there's a one color, blue, azure is actually the color of this one, option that you can get. There's the black and white option. There's also just a white option, which obviously you're not, but I assure you it is there. And if you save this and then put it on a dark background, you will actually see the logo. In addition to the different styles and colors, there's some new placements available. I'm sure you're familiar kind of with the standard placement. So there's above the logo, you can put your club of location above it. You can do a location above. You could say, I could say Iowa Great Lakes, Rotary, and then have club below it. There's also that lockup version that I mentioned a bit ago, that if you wanted to put your club name after it, let's say you have a space, a long horizontal space for something. You could put your club name after the lockup, the pipeline as well. You can also put a club or district name under the standard logo and then insert that if you have an event or something as well. You can also bold it. It's kind of exciting. You can change the size of the font on that size and bold it, but it stays consistent with the brand. Here's an example of one we did. There's a club in Minneapolis that just started in District 5950, and they have a club to end human trafficking. And so this is because of their long club name, this is how they've decided to use their logo. But they also have different options. But anyway, once you do that, you can see there that you can change the size and everything. You can then name it and save it to your logo templates. Now, here's a little trick for you when you go to save your logos. That does say it right here in 8 different languages off to the left that you need to refresh your browser. If not, all your download options show up. Just click on the little refresh button at the top of your screen to refresh that until they all show up like this. And then there are 3 different options that you can download. The PDF file, I think we're all familiar with PDFs. The PDF file is more of a high resolution one. If a vendor or a printing place asks you for a vector file or an EPS file, this PDF will work for that. Any graphic designer can take this PDF and get the outlined version out of this for printing. That's really your highest resolution quality, especially if you're printing something. The JPEG, the difference between a JPEG and a PNG file, if you're not aware, a JPEG has a white box usually around it. It's on a background, and that background is saved in that file. The PNG file is going to have a transparent background, so it's clear, so you can lay that on top of something. So let's say you're doing that white logo that you want to put on a background. You want to make sure you save that as a PNG so it's transparent, so that you see your background through that when you're doing it. So it's kind of the difference between the different file formats there. So you can select on those and download. Here's just an example of different ways that Club to End Human Trafficking can do their logo. All of these are valid. All of these are following Rotary brand standards. Every single one of them. You'll see a few that have the Rotary International, the full logo, and you'll see some that have the simplified version as well. So let's talk a little bit now about Rotary put together a public service announcement campaign, PSA, public service announcement campaign. This was originally supposed to kick off right when COVID hit in March of 2020. It ended up being launched in June of 2020, and this campaign came from Rotary International. Rotary received about $11 million in donated airtime just on television alone for this campaign, that they could run some of their public service announcements. They did this in a lot of larger markets to get the People of Action message out there. And if you haven't seen People of Action, we'll talk about that a little bit too. You can go to rotary.org/action. And so they placed all of these, and there were materials there that are their radio ads, there are television ads, there are print ads, and these are all accessible to you. So there's a toolkit in the brand center on that first page. There's the little box there that says toolkits. If you click on that, you can find all of these resources. So if you have a local television station, or if you have a local radio station, most of those stations have to run some public service announcements free of charge. Now, you may not get to pick when and where they run or what time, but you might be able to get them into the rotation for free. So don't be afraid to give this link to some local media, and they might be able to run some of this to promote Rotary in general for you. Some of these also have a spot at the end. These are called donut spots, meaning they have a little 5 seconds at the end or 3 seconds at the end where it can be tagged for your local Rotary Club. And so you could potentially have a web address or a call to action for people to contact you if they're looking for Rotary in your area. So don't be afraid to pull some of these ads out and use them. These ads include, there's 6 videos there. These are videos you can share in your club as well. There's 4 radio spots, and there's 30 different print ads that are sized differently. With a couple of exceptions, this is a lot of the People of Action campaign materials that you may or may not have seen. The videos have a unique call to action on some of these. They say rotary.org/action. And that is so if people follow that website, we can actually track and see how many people are coming to Rotary and seeing this. So there's a lot of different resources here that you can download and use. These are all for you. There's also some new club resources out there. You access these by going on, here's the Brand Center homepage again. I keep showing you this, so hopefully you go here. It's down here by clicking on the materials. Once you go to the materials section, there's a section called Club Resources. There are a lot of things here. And I'll actually probably go through some things that have been there for a while that you don't know about after a little bit. There's things in here like business card templates to make a business card. There are membership certificates. If you want to do a new member certificate, those are all in there to do. But here's a couple of the new things. We're all doing Zoom calls right now. There's templates to make customized virtual backgrounds. So let's say you want a Zoom background that has your club logo on it. You go to that brand, you go to the Brand Center, make your club logo, and then there's a template here that you can customize and make one that has your club name on the back. There's also a variety of other colors. You see all of these here. There's some that are with the areas of focus. So let's say you're doing a program on water and sanitation. You can pick one that says has the water and sanitation. There are new ones now since I did this that include the environment. So those I think were just uploaded last week. And so there are some environment ones in here too. This template, like I said, allows you to use your district or your club logo to make your own templates. And you can, like I said, you can see here on the side, you can do the blue background, white background, the repeater. The first slide of the download gives you guidance on how to customize it to make it easy for you too. Another item that's in here in the club resources are PowerPoint templates. If you need to present, there are templates on the menu here now. And you just select PowerPoint template, it appears, you select on it, you can download it. And guess what? There are like 38 different templated graphics in here that you can change and use for a presentation, and which already has the Rotary branding and colors all in it. You can just simply update it to be your own. So these are just a few of the new resources, and I think I'll have a little bit of time here to show you a couple others that I think you'd be really interested in if you haven't been in the Brand Center before. The fifth thing that I'd really like to share with you is the Learning Center, another fantastic resource that Rotary International has put together. And I would have to say that the year of COVID actually enhanced this because many of our staff folks weren't out seeing people face to face. They were working more online. And so therefore they were able to develop a lot more of the training courses that are in the Learning Center. So if you go to rotary.org/learn, Rotary research has showed that a lot of our Rotarians are looking for ways to grow professionally and personally. And so Rotary is offering those through the Learning Center. It's a robust learning management system, and it has a lot of self-directed courses that you can take. There are so many topics in here. I've highlighted just a couple that relate to public image. Building Rotary's public image. You can learn a little bit more about what I've talked to you here today. There's Club Public Image Basics. There's a whole course that you can watch on that. Most of these are only 15 to 20 to 30 minutes at the most. Self-guided, you can walk through. There's ones on how to deliver and develop a speech. The essentials of understanding conflict. We all know that as club presidents, that's one of the things that I wish that someone would have told me is that there were, well, there may not have been when I was club president, but that there were resources on how to manage conflict and understand it within club members. There's There's 2 learning sessions just on how to use the Learning Center and how to use these learning topics, how to do an inspirational speech, leading change. We've all learned change firsthand this year. Rotary also has a partnership with Toastmasters, and that's where a lot of the delivering a speech sessions come from, is through Toastmasters. So, but there's also a how do you get started with that through the Toastmasters. So the Rotary Basics, if you have new members that want to learn just about Rotary, there's some great ones here. The Rotary brand talks more about the local and visual identity that I've been talking about. So feel free to go in here. It's at your leisure. There's some wonderful courses in here, and they keep adding to them daily. So feel free to check those out. So when you go into the Learning Center and you're in the course category or course catalog, you can select by category. I just selected here for public image. There's leadership, there's training, and it pops up the different ones that are there. You can click on any of the topics. And even if you don't want to do it right now, you can enroll. And when you enroll, it just adds it to your watch list, your learning plan structure, so that if you want to come back later and you realize the ones that you already had in there. Some of these are longer. This Club Public Image one is an hour and 15 minutes, but it always tells you the time on them when they're in here. So here's the Building Public Image course. This is the course, the home page. You just click Start, and it's self-guided. Once you're inside, it's a simple self-guided course that you can stop and start. Like I said, most of them are 15 to 30 minutes. So if you get a chance, explore it. This is there for you and for your club members. Anyone can access this, and it's a great resource for everyone to learn and to develop yourself as well. And of course, I'm not done. I still have a couple more resources. This is a public image at a glance one-pager that I have put together that I will share with Kenny after this today, and then he can send out to you. This just gives you an overview of some of the publications that you can find in the Brand Center. I mentioned the Voice and Visual Guide. There's also a messaging guide, how to craft a message that has keywords with Rotary. So if you're doing that, there's an ideas book that has examples of things you can do. There's visual identity guidelines for young leaders, for young professionals, how you might want to use your wording a little bit differently if you're trying to attract a younger audience. There's the People of Action campaign and guidelines and style guides. Down in the corner, you'll see the gray box. That is a People of Action campaign guidelines. In that guide on pages 4 and 5, it's a PDF that you can download. It actually walks you through questions on how to tell your club's Rotary story. How do you come up with your club's story for that elevator speech, or for an ad, or for how to promote your club? And it walks you through how to do that. There's quick start guides for club social media. There's for how to do club websites. There's even an event planning guide. And I'm going to show you a little bit more of that in a moment too. And I'm not highlighting the event planning guide because if you look closely, someone's picture might be in it. I don't know how it got there, but someone's picture's in it. But it's something really, it's a good material. Something else that clubs should know exist is that there's this media crisis management points as well. I will send this to you. It's just a one-pager. I'll send this to Kenny to share with all of you. What happens, heaven forbid, if you have a crisis in your club? This is something that we all need to be prepared for. We hope it doesn't happen, but you never know when something could happen. And you need to know that there are people here to support you through Rotary and to help you through that. So let's say something unfortunate happens with the youth exchange student, or there's an incident or something. This kind of talks you through how to set up your crisis team, who should be involved. You should gather the facts. It tells you kind of step by step, real basic, what if the media contacts you, how you should respond. And then also, that you have RI, Rotary International Media Relations, is there as your backup. They're there to help and support clubs, not just districts or zone people. They'll help clubs if you have an issue and how you can handle that best to make sure that it doesn't blow up to be a media nightmare. So here's a one-page media crisis thing that I think is good for all clubs to have and to at least have a conversation and think about at some point. So there's just a few things. I wanted to make sure that you know where the brand center is and where Rotary, the learning center is. Those are the two addresses. And I am going to open it up for questions in just a moment. But since I have a little bit of time, I'm going to very quickly show you a couple more things in the brand center that if you haven't been in there, here's a few more refresher tools. In that, create your own toolkits, which you get to from the first page of the brand center. This is where there's those people of action items, and you can select create your own. If you haven't seen this, this is a great way for you to do social media content or to do an ad if you need one. But you can go in, and when you create your own content, you pick your language, and then you have the options. There's different words. There's 8 different words: inspire, mentor, end polio. So together we inspire, together we mentor, together we end polio, together we transform, together we learn, together we save lives. I'm not sure I'm going to remember all 8 of them right off the top of my head, but you can select which word that you want is the big word. You can change the photo. You select the photo, the background. When you click, you can change text. There's templates that have text and templates that don't have text. This is where you can say how to reach out to your club and how to find us. This is one that I did with my club. We put on social media. We added playground equipment to a park, and this was our photo. And we simply used the people of action. Together we transform. And we put this on our Facebook and then mentioned that, we now installed 8 different new playground equipment pieces at a local park. And so it's much more engaging, and we have the Rotary branding. Now, we didn't put the actual logo on this one only because it was on our Facebook page, which is branded quite heavily with Rotary. In that section where it's the brand center, if you click on materials, this is also where there's those club resources, or there's the create your own. In the club resources section, there's a lot of things like stationery. This is where you can find a membership card or certificate of membership. There's a business card template right here that you can download. It's actually a PowerPoint template that you just go in, type in your information. The template is all there. You can switch out the image if you want to be, well, you should, to be your club name, ideally. But I was doing this for a public image coordinator one originally. And then if you want to add your photo, just add a photo into it. And guess what? You have a template right here. You can take to your local Staples or Office Max or whatever printer and print business cards from this. And they already have the branding. Pretty simple. There's event resources. I mentioned that event planning guide. This is a nice guide if you're doing an event to just walk you through the things to think about. And then there's also customizable promotional resources that you can use. There's banners already pre-made, or there's event flyers. And I'm highlighting one of the flyers here. Here's a flyer that you can download. And guess what? You can click on it to change the image. You can change your club name. So here's one. I changed out the photo and I put our club food drive in here. So here was the template. Here's how I made it my club. Very simple. You just click and change things. There's posters. Let's say you want to put a poster up in the local school about RILA or something. You can also download that. You could switch out the words. You can switch out the photos. You can put your connection information. And then guess what? You have a poster to help promote it. So there's a lot of great tools in this create your own that you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to start from scratch at all. And so I encourage you. There's also a club brochure. I think this is the last one I'm going to show you. It's a trifold brochure. You hit create, and it's got that same thing. You pick the panel, you can change the photos, you can put different words in there. It highlights it for you, and you just switch things out. Let's say I just clicked a photo here. I choose my file. I chose a tree planting. So there's part of a tree planting. It's probably not the greatest photo to put in there, but I wanted to show you how it works. You can change out your information. You can put events in, change out the name of your club. There's a front and a back. You see it up at the top. You can change all the photos. And then once again, you get to the part, you refresh your browser, and then you can save it. You can save it in a variety of ways, but it's a great way to do a quick little club brochure. Here's just a really quick one I did with my club. Didn't even take a lot of time with this one, just kind of threw some stuff in there, but it's all based on my club right now. And it has the Rotary brand. So some things to remember as you're in the brand center. If you haven't visited there, please do so. It truly is a great resource